446-528. Okay. All right, we got that. I got into this tonight. 446 528. And Marianne, we have a meeting with Marianne on Friday now. She's calling us to see who's coming.
I'll call it to see who's coming to the meeting.
Yeah, she's
So you're
a.
gonna go to the meeting for sure, right?
I don't know.
Even if you just sit there and listen, you want to hear what she says your own self.
Or-
First hand, you don't need second hand information on this.
Oh, I'm not gonna say anything because I'm not talking to her now. You know, they weren't talking to us before. Now they want that. Now they need to have all these, and she's bringing Brian and.
Well, you know, this is what happens. They bring their troops, you know, they bring the fiscal guys. I mean, Brian's a nice enough guy, but he's going to do what he's told. He's going to crunch the numbers the way he's told. What's you got that on there, so I'm going to say, what is the COVID dashboard, but I don't want to mess up your
How President Trump's recklessness and negligence have hurt not only the United States, but really raised the
I can bring it over here.
coronavirus inside the White House itself. My special report right after this.
You can't predict the future, but a resilient business can
That's
be
all
great.
right.
A digital
Can you-
foundation.
you know how to get to it?
Helps you redefine what's possible now. From hospitals shifting to remote patient care in just 48 hours, to the university moving hundreds of apps quickly to the cloud.
You're the IT guy? Hi, I'm Dan Fannin. How are you? I see your hand shaking. Good friends with Ann, and I'll be chairing this due tonight, so. Is this where everything will be broadcast, or?
Can't warm up.
So the audience will see it from here, so I have to move out of the way.
I don't know.
Okay.
What you hear is the broadcasting warm up. Put yours on mute. Put your.
It's all right. Oh, no, it's not.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, my dear.
Those doors are locked. Is there a way to unlock them?
If this woman is bothering you, we can have her removed. She comes to all these meetings.
Thank you. Better not play with me. I will go home.
I know, I've got it. You need to be up here. This is where the commissioners are. We need to have a showing that.
Okay.
Good. John can't be here tonight, so I'm sharing this due.
Well, this somebody's,
I don't know, just, if you want to sit here, that's,
okay, I'll sit here.
oh, okay. Yeah, John's daughter took sick, they took her to the hospital this afternoon, so we can't be here, so.
Yeah, that's what I am. Did you learn anything about her condition?
No, I think she's okay. I mean, John called me and he wasn't overly worried, so he seems, it's okay. I don't know what it was, I didn't ask. And I was never, never polite with it. So,
Yeah,
oh,
Well,
how have you been?
I've been fine.
Good, good. Oh,
You're gonna handle all the meetings and the unmeetings?
Yes.
You saw how bad we are when we left our own device.
I'm gonna slip my mask off when I talk.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
can't.
Once we
Yeah.
get on the table, we all take our masks off. Everybody's situation. Okay, here is copy of the agenda. And I've got sign-in sheets, so let's,
Oh, I forgot my book. I was gonna.
and once we get everybody signed in, I will deliver these to you. And then here are 5 copies.
You know, I went by on the way here. And then I drove up to Alumni House. The same friggin' buildings on there's a much fancier entrance to it. But I'm sure the interior is a completely different, but that's not the issue. For different purposes. But I mean, it's very clear what the actual idea. And they're basically the same, same building if they were kept up with. So there's a wrecked car that's in front there. It says no demolition, and there's plaster they were put in all over the neighborhood to come to this meeting. So who knows what's up?
Yes, right here.
Good.
So they're right here. There you go.
Right. Oh, good. Now I can
And
see.
this is my copy. I want it back if you want to hold it. I guess that's it.
This okay. This is the one from Arlington. Oh no, sorry. This is the one from Vassar. Yeah,
Also look for that.
yeah. This is. I mean, there's no question that it is a little cheap, but so am I. Yeah, that doesn't mean you should put me on the job.
We would never do that.
See, that's been open. That's just not deterioration, so it's glitching. And it's all it's the same thing.
They did it through to the event.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
all right.
Okay, that's my copy.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Anybody else show up? So there's supposed to be a public hearing tonight on the Vassar.
Sorry?
Is there supposed to be a public hearing tonight?
Yes, that's what this is on Williams.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the application came in, the Arlington Neighborhood Association saw that. Then a big response from Vassar.
Mhm.
So we need to hear from both of them and have a public forum because it's a huge deal. And then we'll vote yes or no for landmark, and then it goes off to the town board.
Okay.
And so, I mean, if we say yes.
Mhm.
So it's very important that, you know, there's been a lot of resistance to this on both sides. Right? And big guns. So it's a lot of money is involved for Vassar, and the community feels that they're really losing something.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that community, I think, is mostly Vassar faculty.
well, the point is, I mean, I'm making it very clear what our role is as the commission.
Mhm.
And it's aesthetics only. Okay? We're not, you know, it's, you know, of course, we're not immune to factors of traffic and cost and all of that other stuff, but there's no barrier to what we're doing. Okay? That's for another forum, that's for the town board or for something else.
Mhm.
So the whole question here tonight is anybody whether can speak to is Williams Hall worthy enough to be landmarked? Yes or no? End of story. Because there's nothing more. Because otherwise you go off to the races. Now, there's all sorts of daring ideas about how things should be, and it has nothing to do with us. And when it comes down to the money, which is one of the major objections, right? That's for the town board. That's not for us.
Money factors in now. Williams House was a certain way model.
Yeah, well, so they want to knock it down and then
Right.
build this hotel and this institute this and put a parking lot where Williams is. That's a big bugaboo with the neighborhood. But the fact remains that there's a lot of money involved in terms of Vassar. All right, so I understand that. But that's not our issue.
Right.
All right, and it's very important. I make that very clear to everyone because
So is Vassar itself doing this development?
oh yes, the Vassar, Vassar itself is going to want to tear down all of Williams and then build this hotel and build this institute that's there.
Okay. And people love Night House up?
Sorry?
People love Night House up?
Yeah.
Or
So
replace
the
it?
whole, so a lot of the parking, the land in front of the
Yes.
house is going to be all. And then where Williams is, that's all parking.
Well, the land is in front of. Where
Yeah.
the farmer's market is?
Yes. Yeah, see, so, I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I understand it from both sides. But like I said, to me, it's very important in my vote, and also the commission, that we simply look, I just stopped on all the way here and I looked at the building and I said to myself, do you think we should be landmarked, yes or no? It could be no more than that. So what I want to hear from the neighborhood association is why should this be landmarked, which they've already told us, but here tonight. And hear from that, so the owner, they say, why should not? Anything else, how they're supposed to do things or whatever, you know, it is beside the point. That's for somebody else. And that's what's going to be interesting. That's what I want to see answered. We'll see how that goes. All right. Hello, my dear.
We're going to be recording it and we're going to put it on YouTube.
So if you have Wi-Fi, you're not going to be outside.
No.
If they go into Zoom,
Unless they join Zoom.
Zoom that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But
Is that why we check? You have Wi-Fi membership here too.
yes.
I don't know if it extends to the driveway though.
Password.
Yeah.
What's up in that other?
I have it.
We have a truly radical password.
Yeah, let me go grab it.
I'm not out in public very much, so looking at your face and not seeing your mouth, but I'm just would redraw. I think you're smiling. I know you're smiling at the moment, but you know that's one of the hardest things. Even in the food store, everybody looks like a criminal.
Who's doing the control of the Zoom?
Sorry.
Who's controlling the Zoom meeting?
Well, it's oh, all right. I had it there.
I'm controlling the time, but I didn't know if you want me to moderate the Zoom too.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, oh dear, we have a representative from the Arts Association who wrote the application. They're going to speak.
So do I know that the tablet with the Zoom stuff on it? It's technical stuff.
Well, there's a tablet over here.
Yeah. He must be.
Oh, yeah, he's the SDIT guy, so he's,
Our mics are on, by the way.
yes. Historic Preservation for the town of Poughkeepsie. My name is Dan Fannin, and I'm Commissioner for Ward 1. And I'm sitting in for the Chair, John Pina. His daughter was, he's also the historian, town historian. His daughter was taken to the hospital this afternoon. So he's dealing with family issues. It seems like everything's going to be okay, but he needs to be with family tonight. So he sends his regards and regrets, and we send him our thoughts and best wishes for his daughter's recovery. Besides the members you see here in person, we are joined in the internet by the other members of the commission. And I'm saying that because we want you to know that the full commission will give your presentations its full attention. Before we start, we want to do some housekeeping about what's always complicated with Zoom. So how to make things work, we have our resident guru on the committee to do that for us.
Thank you, Dan. My name is Yvonne Lobby. I'm in the Historic Preservation Commission. A couple of things. We ask you to silence your cell phones, and if you can, in the meeting room. Additionally, we have you on mute if you're joining us by Zoom. If when we are available for public comment, we're asking everybody to write their name in the chat, and I will call them in the order in which they sign in the chat box. If you're joining by phone, you can unmute yourself when it's time by hitting *6, and you could also raise your hand by hitting *9. So *6 is to mute or unmute yourself. *9 is to raise your hand. I think that's it.
Great.
We're gonna do the
And
pledge.
just a reminder for everyone to speak clearly, because with masks and internet buzzwords and all sorts of things going on, it would be helpful. So I'm not going to call the October meeting to order, and unless there are any objections, I confirm that we have a quorum of the members. We are in business, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to ask for a motion to suspend our October agenda and discussion of other landmark issues until after this presentation, so that we can proceed directly to the public hearing on the application for landmark status of Williams Hall of Vassar College. Do I have anyone so moved? Seconded? Thank you. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion approved. Thank you. A couple of things to give you an idea of what we're about as the commission in this process, and also what's going to happen this evening. Pursuant to the Town of Poughkeepsie Preservation Code, Chapter 126, when we receive an application, the commission begins the process of evaluating that application. That means that we study the application, visit the building, researches the building independently, its architecture and historicity. And as needed, we seek outside advice and comments. That's what tonight is about. So the commission will not vote this evening on the application. Very shortly, when we can be with our chairman, we will discuss and come to our decision. If that decision is that we approve the application, it then passes from our hands and is submitted to the town board for its final decision. The important fact is approval for landmark status resides only with the town board. The commission can recommend, but only the board has the authority to approve or disapprove. The order in this evening meeting will be, public meeting will be this, because we have a lot of territory to cover. First, we will hear from a representative of the Arlington Neighborhood Association, the group who submitted the application. Then we will hear from a representative from Vassar College, the owners of Williams Hall. We would appreciate if your presentations can be limited to about 15 minutes. And at the end of each presentation, or at any time, the commissioners may ask questions. At that point, we will open the floor for public comment here and on the internet. People will be limited to 3 minutes to make comments. Please identify yourself and any organization that you represent. What the commission is looking for tonight is very simple. We're looking to answer one question. We are looking for evidence to decide if Williams Hall is worthy to be granted landmark status, or is it not worthy? Ours is an aesthetic decision based on the architectural values and historicity of Williams. That is the limit of our legal scope and responsibilities as a commission. However, we are fully aware of other issues surrounding an historic building, problems of traffic patterns, conditions, use and condition of the interior,
its place in the community, and of course, the costs involved in maintaining or restoring an old building. However, those issues are beyond the scope and decision of this commission. They are issues to be raised with the town board or other agencies. Therefore, we need your help to stay on course this evening. And we ask that you confine your remarks to the issue of should Williams be landmarked, yes or no. Thank you, and we'll open with the representative from the Arlington Neighborhood Association.
Thank you so much for hearing our application and for coming out tonight during COVID, which for many of us is a first. So thank you again. We applied for landmark preservation for 159 College and the 3 Williams Hall buildings in Poughkeepsie, New York. The Arlington Neighborhood Association is a neighborhood group. There are 500 residential units in the Arlington neighborhood. And I am here tonight. My name is Jennifer Burke Goldschmidt to represent the residents of the Arlington neighborhood. This is an image, a very early photograph of the 3 Williams Hall buildings. Alumni House can be seen in the background. As you can see here, Williams Hall is a beautiful building. When it was surrounded by more landscape, its beauty was accented. The Arlington neighborhood, according to the map and the zip code, includes these streets. You can see in gray Vassar College's campus, and in bright green, right in the center of the residential neighborhood is the parcel we are talking about tonight. And that parcel actually includes 6 Tudor Revival style buildings: Alumni House, 3 Williams Hall buildings, and 2 houses that bookend the set. The buildings that we are here to talk about tonight are these 3 Williams Hall buildings and this house, 159 College. Brian Swarthout, sitting behind me, the Vice President of Vassar College, spoke in May about Vassar College and the community and the neighborhood. That the neighborhood, the Arlington neighborhood, has developed around Vassar, and really Vassar sets the foundation for that community character. We agree with that statement wholeheartedly. Vassar was founded in 1861, and the Arlington neighborhood grew around these initial buildings that were on campus, the residential houses in the Arlington neighborhood. I represent the people who responded to our survey that was sent to 500 residential homes. 150 people responded. We also received 60 signatures in a community petition, 57 signatures from Vassar College faculty and staff, a letter from the Vassar College Student Association, and 190 respondents that they informed us responded to their survey. When we asked the Arlington neighbors how they felt about Vassar destroying historic buildings, 85%, 84.6% were against it. Out of 149 respondents, 126 people took the time to get on their computer or fill out our form and bring it to the post office to let us know. 105 out of 148 were concerned about the loss of green space around Williams Hall, about the destruction of historic buildings, 100 out of 148. 95 out of 148 were concerned with the changing character this would force to our neighborhood, and many to the loss of residential units. The siting and aesthetics of Williams Hall is that it sits on one parcel with, as I said, 3 buildings of Williams, 2 houses, Alumni House, and the surrounding landscape. The surrounding landscape to Williams Hall is part of what makes it so special. It is a place where our community finds an old friend, a place to walk, to be, to come together. And the beauty of the Williams Hall buildings and the Tudor set of buildings is a streetscape that brought us to this neighborhood. We chose our homes here because of the beauty of Williams Hall. This is a view from the trees, the backside of Williams Hall. You can see, and I'll come back to these slides, you can see the accents have been beautifully preserved, and the windows. Julie will speak tonight about the feeling you get when you walk amongst the Williams Hall buildings, but I think a little bit this slide communicates that feeling. If you want to turn the lights down, I think it might be easier to see. Sorry. This is a picture of 159 College Avenue from this past year. And they did not, Vassar College did not change the color of the paint. So you can see here that the original French gray was changed for Williams Hall only, but this house preserved the lighter color. And the Tudor stands out very distinctly. The architecture of Williams Hall can be attributed to Hunt and Hunt, notable national architects of their time based in New York City. And the landscape to many designs, many pages of designs by the Olmsted brothers, who also designed Central Park. Those designs clearly influenced how the landscape came out, even though other designers were invited to bid on the final outcome. The Olmsted brothers proposed a path that goes diagonally across the parcel, and that path is there today. Architectural features of the Tudor Revival are evident in Williams Hall. There's steel, probably from James Harvey Williams Foundry in the exterior walls. The slate roof is in excellent shape, steeply pitched gables, windows and doors that accent one another. The original window boxes were removed, but were very beautiful, and the suspension to hang them is still in place, the area to hang them. Gabled roof, half timber style, which I should note for those who don't know about Tudor Revival, unlike original medieval Tudor, half timber is not meant to bear weight. Half timber style was a move away from, was an imitation of Tudor. The layout, the charm, pylon-like entrances, the stucco, rough cast, and pebble dash. These aren't features that are possible today. They're not done. Bay windows on the back side, sleeping porches, abundant light, and then interior features that are not relevant today, including beautiful fireplaces in every apartment and wood floors, slate stairs, and high ceilings. This is an angle of the roof. If I told you this picture was taken 100 years ago, you would believe me. The building gives such a feeling of the time from which it came. About the structural integrity of the building, Slam Architects wrote to Vassar on their request of an evaluation that Williams remains fundamentally sound and is a key element of the Raymond Avenue streetscape and a foil to Alumni House, and then shared the cost, which I will not go into here, a very reasonable cost to bring the building fully accessible and up to code with 2020 sustainability and accessibility guidelines, or 2007, but post ADA guidelines. The condition of Williams Hall is not one of neglect. It's one of the appearance of neglect. In 2011, Vassar installed all new windows in all Williams Hall buildings, environmentally sound windows. The use of 21 residential units continued until weeks ago. The appearance of neglect is due partly to the destruction of the landscaping and the past removal of the wooden window boxes, but mostly due to the change in color of the exterior paint and the lack of a current paint job. Watch this. Alumni House, Williams. Do you see the different color? So Tudor is meant to be an accent between the wood and the stucco. I'll do it one more time. These holes in the front of Williams are where the window boxes once hung, and I'll show you those window boxes in a moment. Little paint would go a long way. Historical significance. 1920, suffrage, the amendment, the national amendment for women's right to vote in the United States, shortly preceded the construction of Williams Hall in 1921. And it is not a coincidence that these two centennials come together. Harriet Trumbull Williams asked, she was a Vassar alumna of the class of 1870. She wrote this letter to ask that residence halls be provided for female faculty at Vassar College, who at the time lived among the students in the main building, while their male counterparts lived in houses independently. It turns out that the first female faculty member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 1848 joined the Vassar faculty in 1865. Maria Mitchell was a professor of astronomy and director of the Vassar Observatory. And in the years that followed Professor Mitchell's tenure at Vassar, President Taylor brought many, many women on principle to the faculty of Williams College. Over time, those women needed fair treatment, and as he left Vassar College, he asked Vassar College to address the issue of fair housing for women's faculty. Suffrage was also very much a force at Vassar College. This is a picture of Inez Milholland, and that her married name is Boissevan, at a protest riding a horse. And there's a very famous protest in Poughkeepsie called the Graveyard Protest that made the New York Times and the papers. Vassar College was called a hotbed of suffrage. It was a place of radicalism in the early 1900s. And in fact, suffrage tore Vassar College apart because President Taylor, who was very progressive in his treatment of women on campus, had to wrestle with a conservative board of trustees. And the conflict between his values and theirs left him to resign over the issues around suffrage and its protests. Suffrage came about in 1920, and Harriet Williams donated the money to erect Williams Hall at that time. And I believe we cannot take the history of Williams Hall out of the context of the history of suffrage. It is a celebration of this massive turning point in history, a complete paradigm shift in our country for women that had been 75 years in the making. Women could only own property in 1850, around 1850. So in 1921, they broke ground for Williams Hall. In 1922, construction was completed for the first Williams Hall building. Alumni House was not built until after Williams Hall. And I would argue that Alumni House was built as a benefit to the women in Williams who were single, to bring a social life to Poughkeepsie and a place for men to stay when they visited the pub. This is the groundbreaking ceremony for Williams Hall. And that is a very, very, very large crowd for, I would say, almost every single person on campus. This was a very small community at that time. This is a picture of the 3 completed Williams Hall buildings. Mildred C. Thompson was very active in that movement and was one of the first residents of Williams Hall as a suffragist. Yet today, we have not finished the work on behalf of women. A study in 2017 said of 7,400 tenure-track faculty that women still disproportionately bear the academic work at universities and colleges and are disproportionately underpaid. Williams Hall stands as a monument and testimony to women's history. And in our country, most buildings that are preserved on behalf of women are their homes. But this building isn't just the home to women. It represented a change in the rights of women professionals, not only at Vassar, but in Poughkeepsie and in our country. And it was a groundbreaking turning point. I come here to speak of local, regional, state, and national concern for preservation of Williams Hall. The State Office of Historic Preservation, with whom I met last Tuesday at length, said that they always sign the letters of resolution and they have no legal ground not to when there's no federal or state funding involved. Yet they wrote 3 letters that included their concerns, their grave concerns about the demolition of Williams Hall. They testified to the National State Register eligibility of the Williams Hall building. The National Trust for Historic Preservation included Williams Hall in the Where Women Made History. The inventory of historic resources made by Neil Larson for the town of Poughkeepsie included every single building I referenced today. SLAM Architects testified to the worth of the Williams Hall buildings. Erin Tobin from the New York State League for Historic Preservation wrote of her support for preservation of Williams Hall in honor of suffrage and its centennial as a permanent landmark. 3 Dutchess County legislators who together represent the Arlington neighborhood wrote a letter of support. Neil Larson wrote another letter of support, and Professor Nick Adams, a historical architecture expert at Vassar College. Vassar wrote that these buildings are not in the inventory, but this is right out of the inventory. 157 to 171 College Avenue, recommended as a historic resource for the town of Poughkeepsie. This is the SHPO eligibility, and here are the comments from SHPO. Our office is concerned with the proposed demolition of these buildings. We recommend that the applicant explore alternatives that would retain and reuse these historic buildings. Based on our review, we concur that the condition, we also agree that the lawn along Raymond Avenue would not be an appropriate location for new construction, excuse me. And they reference the tax credits. Only a small percentage of the sites listed on the National Register of Historic Places are associated with women's history, and that is true of the town of Poughkeepsie. In fact, none of the landmarks in the town of Poughkeepsie, other than the main building itself, are connected to women's history. These places tell the stories of influential American women, the struggles they endured, and the contributions they made to improve the lives of their fellow citizens. It is worth noting that the preservation movement itself was largely created and nurtured by women. And this is by the president of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Important contributions of women have shaped every aspect of our society, and historic places are powerful touchstones to understand the stories of their challenges, our challenges and triumphs. I'll end by saying that Harriet Williams, as far as we can tell, does not have a descendant to speak for her today, but we are here to testify to the enormous impact she made at that time and the way that we have been inspired to preserve Williams Hall, not only because of its beauty and its architectural value, and not only for its community value across our neighborhood, but also for what it represents today. We recommend that Williams Hall be preserved so it can be reused, continued to be used, and we do not believe it needs adaptation as it stands in pristine form. And I'll close with this slide. This is the existing site plan for the parcel that includes Williams Hall, and this is the proposed site plan after the demolition of Williams Hall. And a very great proportion of this historic landscape and parcel will be destroyed if Williams Hall is not preserved. Thank you. I would like to introduce Julie Sabo, also a coordinator of the Arlington
Thank you.
Neighborhood Association.
Let's see, make sure that we have. Do you have a question? If there are any questions from the members of the commission?
Not now.
Not right now.
No. Okay.
Okay, we have two more parts to the
Pull
presentation.
down the. Let me get this one. Oh, yeah.
And they have 2 more speakers.
We have 2 more short, brief sections. We're not quite finished yet.
Dan.
I don't have a question.
Okay. Okay.
We actually have
Comments later.
two more parts to our opening. We will be done quickly. I apologize for the slight delay.
All right, thank you very much.
Go ahead, Julie.
We will now ask.
No, Dan. She has
sorry.
2 more
Oh.
speakers on her behalf.
Yeah, we have 2 more brief statements. We're a team, so I hope you don't mind. This isn't going to take very long. It just has.
Well,
yeah.
we're going in 15-minute sections. So what we'd like to do is have the owners master speak, and then you can speak after that. All right?
Actually,
Julie and I are
I'm
both
part of the-
representing the ANA,
All right,
so I
okay,
apologize for
We are
going.
20 minutes in. Okay, fine. Please make it short as you can.
It's
Thank you.
brief. It's brief, and it just
Apologize.
offers a different perspective. So, anyway, my name is Julie Szabo. I'm an artist, a signatory of the application to preserve Williams, a founding member of the Save Williams Committee, and a 6-year resident of Williams Hall. everybody can hear me because I tend to be soft-spoken. I'd like to begin this presentation in support of our application with a brief excerpt from one of the female scholars who moved into Williams Hall shortly after its completion. But oh, the difference to me. After just 1 week of real quiet, not merely accidental quiet or quiet during quiet hours, but stillness, habitual and continuous. No one passes my door except callers from my neighbor across the way, and nor do any of my neighbors shout or sing or scream or howl or shriek or play jazz on the Victrola, though they're often merry and their laughter comes pleasantly to me as I sit on my porch. For porches have we, 6 of them, whereon to sleep or sit, to write or read or sew, to hold a conversazione, to serve tea, and even regular meals cooked in our wonderful kitchenettes. And the view therefrom has its own charm. But best of all, we have fireplaces. Now, your fireplace is a mighty influence towards study and reflection. I have done more reading this winter than for some years past. So delightful it is to have a little house, to own the hearth and stool and all. Yes, in Williams, I breathe more quietly, more slowly, and therefore more deeply. I accomplish more with less effort. Heartily do I wish we might house not only all the faculty, but all the students in a cottage system where every dweller might have rest unto her soul through the possession of 2 rooms, 1/2 of a bathroom and porch, 1 kitchenette and a fireplace. This was written in 1923 by Amy Louise Reed and published in the Vassar Quarterly. Our HPC application builds our case is built for preservation on several key components, and you've heard Jen mention some of them. We assert that the importance of Williams Hall in women's history as the first residence built for independent female scholars, and we applaud the innovation and insight of Harriet Williams and the Williams Hall Committee, which accomplished this goal. Second, we argue for the architectural relevance of Williams Hall as an irreplaceable and romantic example of the early 20th century Tudor revival style. We firmly believe that Williams Hall, the Alumni House lawn, and the small Tudor-style houses nearby form an inseparable whole, and that only all of the buildings and the surrounding landscape together represent the true vision of the innovative women founders, as well as the intentions of both the commissioned architects and landscape designers. In Vassar's defense for demolition, they breeze over the importance of this specific development in women's history. They discount Harriet Williams' contributions, and they claim that only Alumni House and not the other buildings are historically relevant, although they were conceived of and built at the same time by the same architects. As mitigation for the irreplaceable loss that demolition would involve, Vassar offers as a replacement a 3D digital mock-up with a few pieces of hardwood flooring and a couple of salvaged glass doorknobs. This is not good enough. The innovative ideas that led to the Williams Alumni House lawn complex, which resulted in Amy Louise Reed's joyous and poetic description, are articulated in the actual whimsical and gracious forms of the Williams buildings themselves. Here are some of the hallmarks of this Tudor-style revival forms. The buildings are grouped around a common courtyard that give the residents the opportunity to have social interactions while also providing the privacy that Miss Reed lauds. There are also the rhyme and rhythm of the gables with romantic half timbering, the unusual entrances with porticos that originally had heavy wooden doors similar to those of Alumni House, the artistry of the oriel overhangs and the outcroppings of the sleeping porches and balconies, the elegant slate shingles, the steeply sloped roofs, all of this framed by the beautiful lawn and landscaping of Olmsted's company and the mirroring of the Alumni House up the hill. The difference, there's a really interesting thing in the difference in the half timbering on the front side, which opens up in a welcoming fashion to the residential street, and the fairy tale half timbering on the back side, which faces the Alumni House and is truly magical when you look at it. And it's very clear in this side that we're talking about that it was built directly in relationship to the Alumni House, which is next to it. All of these elements create a setting that evokes what Gavin Townsend, who's a Tudor revival scholar, calls a romantic images of quaint villages in English forests. And this style was particularly attractive to artists and literati. That's his quote. Williams, in its siting and its style, it continues to be a pleasure and a treasure to those of us who had the good fortune to reside there, as well as the neighbors and residents of Arlington who pass it by every day. As for the interior, there are well-placed windows, the quirky Tudor gables and built-ins, the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, the fireplaces, the solidity of stone stairways and cast iron railings, and yes, even the glass doorknobs. They were all intentionally designed to promote the quiet atmosphere of scholarship that Amy Reed celebrates. Contrary to Vassar's distinction between alumni houses architecturally relevant and Williams as not relevant, the design of both buildings is intrinsically related and necessary to each other. Often I think of Alumni House with its long driveways as more of a castle on the hill with a more plebeian but nonetheless elegant accommodations for William Hall workers below. And Jen mentioned how important this is to the history of the Williams building, is that Alumni House was built as a club for the trustees and alumni, and then this was actually built for the faculty. Anyway, the Tudor Revival style affords a lot of room for imagination. So my question to everybody is this: are these pictures of pastoral English idylls to promote scholarly contemplation dated? Absolutely. But this is the crux of our argument for preservation. The physical presence and the terrain of the Tudor village fabricated by Williams Hall and Alumni House and the lawn and the small Tudor houses together was not only creative and forward-looking for its time, it remains a concrete expression of the form that the female committee members came up with and committed to. Williams, along with Alumni House, is a historical treasure in which the confluences of a particular historical moment are crystallized via the mastery of Hunt and Hunt into physical form. It's heedless and needless, as well as shameful, to lose this asset to our community. And I really call upon the Commission to aid us in our fight to help preserve these buildings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I know she won't speak now, but I promised to introduce her, so I think she's at the top of the list. Ellen Stewart is here, and she is on the Historic Preservation Commission of Hoboken, New Jersey, and she is also the Vice President of the Historic Society of the Town of Marlborough, and I believe she's first of the public comments to testify on our behalf. I'll just close by pointing to the window boxes, which I promised to do.
You're not on mic.
I'm not on mic. Okay. Ellen Stewart is from the Historic Commission of Hoboken, New Jersey, and on the Vice President of the Historic Society of the Town of Marlborough, and she was supposed to present next, but if you'd prefer, she can wait for the public comments. I just want to end by pointing to the window boxes. I think Williams Hall gets a bad rap because of the holes in the front, but Vassar chose to remove these beautiful window boxes and gardens that could easily be returned. And I will close by saying thank you so much again for hearing us and for your work to preserve landmarks on our behalf in the town of Poughkeepsie. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Now
Thank you
ask
for
the-
coming out in COVID, everybody.
Yes, representatives of the owners of the property, Vassar College, to come and give us their presentation. And you are allotted more than 15 minutes.
And just a reminder, if you do wish to make a public comment to those in Zoom, joining us in Zoom, please put your name in the chat box and we will call in the order in which you appear in the chat box.
Thank you. I'm Brian Swartout, representing Vassar College here today. I just want to thank you for the time to respond to the application. We've done a lot of analysis as a result of the work going on for this and around Williams Hall, excuse me. And so I'm going to turn it over to some experts around historic preservation, Beth from Hudson Valley Cultural Resources, Mike Devonshire from Jan Hurd Porkney Associates, who will go through the analysis.
Is the mic on? Got me?
I can hear you. Yes,
Great.
thank you. Sorry.
Thank you again. Good evening. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak
Maybe
with
just
you for
pull
a
it a
few
little
minutes.
closer.
A little
Thank you.
closer. Sorry, not used to loudly through the masks. My name is Beth Seelig. I am the principal investigator with Hudson Valley Cultural Resource Consultants. I have been the principal investigator since 2015. Just to quick background about me, I will simply state that I meet the Secretary of the Interior's qualifications as an archaeologist and a historian. And in a few short weeks, I will complete a rigorous program in historic preservation with Boston Architectural College. Next to me is Mike Devonshire from Jan Hurd Berknoy Associates, and then Brian from Vassar's here as well. Also on the Zoom, we have representatives from Frederick Fisher and Partners, Architects, LRC Group with Engineering, Consigli Construction, and then Peter Wise is assisting us as project counsel. Williams Hall is an example of the Tudor Revival style for which Hunt and Hunt did several designs. We don't feel that Williams Hall is a significant example of Hunt and Hunt's work generally. They are more well renowned for the work that they have completed down on Manhattan's Gulf Coast. Here in Poughkeepsie, the most significant example of this particular style would be the Alumni House, which overshadows Williams Hall in both massing and siting, and even in detail. But the most significant example of Hunt and Hunt's work in the Tudor Revival style would have been Robert Howland Hunt's house, Hillside, which is located in Tuxedo Park. The landscape around Alumni House in Williams Hall has been attributed to the design of the Olmsted brothers. They did in fact come up with several different layouts for that property. You'll see here in this design developed in 1931, which is available in the digital archives in the National Olmsted of Parks, National Association of Olmsted Parks, that it focused primarily on the landscape around Alumni House. And in this next slide, you can see an up-close image of the residential sites that were proposed along Raymond Avenue. It's worth noting that the plans included utilizing almost the entirety of the lawn, and that they included Williams Hall as a point of reference and didn't really incorporate that part into their overall plan. I think it's quite obvious to anybody looking at the lawn today to note that the entranceway coming in from from College and Raymond Avenue was not built, and these parking lots were not built, nor were the residential sites. I'd also like to point out that Beatrix Ferrand was contracted to do some landscaping work around Alumni House, and she had originally proposed putting Kendrick House on the lawn next to Williams and turning that lawn space into an arboretum and a private garden for the female faculty, and that was not completed either. There have been alterations made to the interior of Williams Hall since very early part of its life. Originally, Williams Hall 2 included a kitchen and dining space in the basement. That was moved to Williams Hall 1 when Williams Hall 1 was completed, although that was later converted into a private apartment. You can see in the blueprints on the left that date to 1920. Those are the ones from Hunt and Hunt's original design. You can see, let me see if my mouse will show up. You can see that the balconies were open and that the apartment shared, they had a shared bathroom. In 1968, which is the plan over here on the right, renovations were undertaken that converted the private balconies and sleeping porches into the kitchenettes, and the bathroom spaces were altered to make each individual apartment have a private bath. Since being that we are now in 2020, I'd like to just point out that Williams Hall has existed in its renovated state for longer than it existed in its original form. The results of the team efforts led to our conclusion that the Williams Tudor Revival style is not unique to the town of Poughkeepsie. The current landscape does not represent the work of a significant designer or landscape architect. That Williams Hall no longer retains integrity of its historical function as housing for female faculty. I was unable to track down when the date of that changed, but since the college went coeducational in the mid-20th century, I would like to assume it was around that time. And that the past interior renovations have negated any of the historic integrity of these apartment spaces. I spent a significant amount of time going through the archives housed at Vassar College, looking at the material housed in the Adrian's Memorial Library in the town of Poughkeepsie, as well as a number of online platforms, and was unable to come up with any direct connection to the town's history. I spoke with the archivist Jean Rogers and the current Vassar historian Colton Johnson, who confirmed that they had no knowledge of community functions ever being held at Williams Hall because those were private spaces and they were only accessible to Vassar faculty and Vassar employees. The building is, in my opinion, not a testament to the accomplishments of the women faculty who lived there. It is not, it's certainly not a monument that represents all of the wonderful and groundbreaking things that they did and the contributions they made to society as a whole. Let's go through this briefly, but Vassar has spent a considerable amount of time and energy retaining professionals who can certainly speak to the efforts involved in renovating Williams Hall. They looked at the overall cost. The team considered what would be required to renovate these apartments and convert them all or some of them into ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act compliant spaces. As a result of this endeavor, it became clear that there is the potential for 19 to 22 very small apartment units. And in order to create appropriate access and appropriate parking, the alumni lawn would need to be utilized. In addition, these changes would require significant alterations to the structure of Williams Hall, which would negatively impact the original design and the original construction materials. The cost of this renovation is estimated at a minimum of $17.2 million, which breaks down to either $780,000 or $905,000 per unit. It's important to highlight that this rate is significantly higher than what the current market rate is for new units, which would generally be larger in size. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Devonshire to talk a little bit about the restoration process.
I would preface my remarks in revealing that I am a landmarks commissioner in New York City. I have been on the faculty of the Columbia University Preservation Program for more than 15 years. I've taught at the Nantucket Preservation Institute, Nantucket, and actually did restoration work on the Maria Mitchell House on Nantucket. I am a preservationist. I'm a principal at Jan Herd Picorni Associates, a firm that's been in business for 60 years. And my background is in forensics. I was hired by Vassar. Our firm was hired by Vassar to tell them what it would take to restore these buildings. And that's where I really put my value in being able to determine what significance the building has architecturally and what would be involved in restoring it to a Class A, and using the Secretary of the Interior standards, a Class A condition. And so what we did, I released my staff and myself, and we spent a few days going over the buildings and determining the condition of the materials so that we could determine in the end what we would have if these buildings could be restored. And first of all, we sounded all of the exterior stucco, just visually. First of all, there was mention of paint on the stucco. The dash stucco on these buildings was not originally painted, it was raw. And that has an impact on the ultimate decision that I made here. At least 65 to 70% of the stucco on those buildings has delaminated. It is delaminated, not to be too technical, but stucco absorbs moisture, it absorbs rain. Because there were not soft joints created in that original stucco, which are something that's required now, the stucco expands and contracts, and there's what's called map cracking all over those facades. Everywhere there's a crack, water gets in, and it starts to separate the outer layer of the stucco from the inner layers of the stucco. At least 65 to 75% of that exterior stucco is going to have to be replaced. Some of it is actually a danger. It's a public safety hazard. It's so loose. The shingles, there was much made about the shingles on the building. In fact, they were not the highest grade shingles. They were not Vermont slates. They're from Pennsylvania. There's a great deal of carbon in it. In our estimation, the slates on the roof and the flashings, which have long exceeded their performance life, have to be replaced 100%. The windows have been replaced 100% in a form that does not match the original form of the windows, nor does it match the original operation of the windows, the original windows. The much touted half timber, unfortunately in the 1920s took a turn so that it's not truly a timber frame with stucco between the timber elements that give it that half timber look. On these buildings, the half timber is simply 1 inch thick planks that were nailed into the stucco. And in most good construction, and I think on the Hunt House actually in New Jersey, the wood is oak. We've done several buildings that have half timbering, more recently Coe Hall on Long Island. And in fact, when oak is used as the half timber planking, you have a much longer performance life. The wood that was used on these buildings is pine. It's an incredibly movable, it's an incredibly moisture absorbent material. And if you don't maintain it scrupulously, which essentially nobody can, even at Coe Hall where they had oak, it's in very poor shape. You can see in the image on the left some of the delamination that has occurred that's actually popped off the building. We tapped pretty much the entire facade with acrylic hammers and could hear hollow beneath almost all of the stucco. So in our estimation, 65% to 70% of the stucco is going to have to be replaced. When you replace that stucco, it will be impossible to rematch that original texture or the original color. Thus, these buildings will have to be painted. Now, they could be painted with a potassium silicate paint that will have a very long performance life, but you don't have the original material. At least 70 to 80% of the wood on these buildings is going to have to be replaced. If I was your consultant, I would tell you that the windows, we would not have accepted these windows at the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission. I can tell you that. And so we're in a situation where, given the propensity, given an attitude of restoration here, what we would have in the end are 3 buildings with almost nearly complete replacement of the exterior, replacement of the windows, replacement of the slate roofs, and we would essentially have nothing authentic, nothing original. We would have a Disneyland of inauthenticity with these buildings. All of this is notwithstanding the changes that have taken place on the interior. I was mostly concerned with the exterior. The interiors are nearly non-recognizable to anyone who was a student here in the 20s or the 30s. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd just like to take the next few minutes to quickly wrap up here for you, to say that Vassar has complied with the New York State Historic Preservation Act. We did look at a major alternatives analysis, which did lead to that letter of resolution that was spoken of before. Vassar is complying with the mitigation strategies that were specified in that, and on consultation with SHPO is at this point ongoing. In addition to the mitigation efforts that are outlined in the letter of resolution, Vassar is committed to salvaging materials for reuse. such as the slate from the roofs and some of the flooring from the interior. Fixtures will be salvaged for use in other Vassar buildings. Vassar has contacted a number of restoration and salvage firms to preserve as much of this material from Williams Hall as possible, and will retain all of the documentation of those salvage efforts. Vassar has commissioned a public work by Mark Diane to showcase the extraordinary history of Vassar, and it will include elements from Williams Hall. Vassar is also creating a digital resource of Williams history using the plethora of material that's available in Vassar archives. And as mentioned, Vassar has completed digital scans of Williams, which will be rendered in 3D. So to summarize, the team does not feel that Williams Hall represents a unique or historically relevant piece of architecture or landscape design. We feel that it does not contribute to the sociocultural history or character of the town. The information gathered indicates that the renovation of Williams Hall would substantially deviate from the original architecture, its historic intent and function. And renovation and restoration is financially unreasonable. And as a result, Vassar has committed to undertaking alternative approaches to preserving the history of Williams Hall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yes, actually, I have a question. Dan, if you're willing to let us.
Anyone have any questions?
I do. Dan, I do.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, yes. I'm sorry.
Apparently I droned on a little too long. We're all sleeping.
No. So for clarification, could you explain what you mean by Class A condition?
Class A condition as far as the federal government is concerned, a Class A condition is the use of, following the Secretary of the Interior standards, materials would be replaced in kind. And in fact, in this particular situation, to replace them in kind would be to replace them with a substandard, in my opinion, and in most preservation architects' opinions, a substandard material. Pennsylvania slate is far less a quality material than Vermont slate. And so essentially a Class A restoration would be that restoration which reflects what those buildings looked like originally. And you cannot achieve that with these buildings. One aspect of it would be the stucco. You will not be able to find an aggregate or a body for that stucco that exactly matches the 20 or 30% that will be left behind. So you will have a perhaps close, but a mismatched stucco rendering on the exterior of these buildings. And the only way to get it to look like it did originally would be to apply a paint coating to it, which is completely anathema in the world of historic preservation for something like this.
Thank you.
Sure.
Additionally, that you had mentioned the cost for restoring the structure. So it sounds like you're bringing it back to, the cost is included to bring it back to its original state, and the state from 1968 or the state from Hunt and Hunt?
Talking about the exterior only, not talking about the interior, we could conceivably, although with some limitations, take it back to that period of interpretation, which would be the time when it was completed, when those buildings were completed.
So that's what the cost
That's
reflects.
correct. And that would be the restoration that follows the Secretary of the Interior standards.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Sure, could you just make sure you say your name?
Yeah, hi, Brian Swartout again. So the one thing though with renovation is we would need to change the interior to make it actually useful for Vassar, which would include installing an elevator, which would penetrate the roof and then have negative impacts on the historical characteristics of the building. And there would probably be other things, as we outlined in our document, that would be impacted with the renovation in order to make it a useful building.
Okay, thank you. Annan or Dan, do you have any questions?
One question I would have, before coming here, I went over and took a look at Williams and looked at Alumni Hall. It seems basically you're talking about the same construction. Maybe a little bit more money was put into Alumni Hall in the beginning, certainly in the interior with a fancy facade. But in terms of the stucco, in terms of the wood and all of that, Vassar has kept up Alumni Hall very well, whereas they've let Williams Hall deteriorate. So that is a concerning factor to me, because what you're describing in terms of the stucco, I mean, stucco is a miserable material to begin with. It's one of the materials God forgot, as far as I'm concerned. But the thing is, so you have a real problem with that, I understand. But it does speak to the intention, I think, of Vassar from the very beginning, that they have kept up Alumni Hall, which is really very similar. I mean, I even looked at the roof tiles, and then I looked over at Williams, and I thought, I know neglect when I see it. I've restored 4 period houses myself. Right? I've been involved in restoration since the early 80s to Staten Island, and that's a place that's difficult. So I think that is a concern, right? Because if you let something deteriorate to the point where you say, well, it's just too costly or too much of a problem, then it's easier to get rid of it, and that concerns me. The only other thing was too is in your response that you sent, it was saying that, of course, that Williams is not as good an example of that architecture, of course, as Alumni Hall or some of the Hunt and Hunt works, of course, in the city. And I just think that's not a good argument, because that's like saying you have a very fine 1805, 1810 federal house, but it's okay to throw it down because it's not Boscobel. And so I think that's an argument would be probably good to delete as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, these are more my concerns rather than questions, but I mean, I understand your situation, but it didn't come from nowhere is what I'm saying. Thank you.
Anna, do you have anything to say?
No, I don't.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and more. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to open up to anyone in the room who has not spoken before. If you'd like to come up, and we'll give you 3-4 minutes for this.
You have 3 minutes.
Jonathan Gordon. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So please state your name.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Gordon. I'd like to say a few words in support of the application for landmark status. So in the first presentation at the meeting, we were shown an architect's drawing that was published in Vassar Quarterly in 1919 and shows Williams looking much as it looks today, minus the construction fence they put up, with 3 beautiful Tudor-style buildings situated below and complementing yet to be built Alumni House. Vassar's representatives described Alumni House as overshadowing Williams, but this doesn't match my experience. Alumni House is set far back and is largely unseen from College Avenue, which is dominated by Williams. This is the landmark on the street and for that neighborhood. Many of the arguments that Vassar just made against landmark status for Williams would apply equally, if not more, to Main Building, which has landmark status. Just as Main is now home to students regardless of sex, Williams, until this summer, has been home to faculty regardless of sex. Its original intent, housing Vassar's professors, is continuous. Maine's current linoleum floors and damp carpet are modern, they're not original, whereas Williams' wood floors are original. Both buildings have undergone small changes in their interior configurations to meet the needs of the current residents. That has not reduced their historic value. The renovations Vassar described doing include things that have been done to other historic buildings on campus, including Alumni House and Main Building. For instance, over the past 2 years, Vassar has been replacing the windows of Main Building with new metal ones, just like those they put in Williams. They haven't even matched the color of them for Main. That has not improved the appearance of Main, but it has not removed its historic value. So not matching the original materials might not make it the finest example of historic preservation, but it doesn't remove the value of the building to the community and as part of the history of the college and of Poughkeepsie. Designating Williams as a historic landmark is essential to preserve it as a beautiful central part of the College Avenue neighborhood and the historic core of Arlington. as well as part of the history of Vassar College and of women's education in the US. Without this designation, Williams is likely to be demolished, and a beautiful, living part of Vassar's identity will be lost that can't be preserved just by taking photographs or making a 3D model or salvaging a few doorknobs from the building. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak?
Good evening. So my name is Marie Talon, and I live in 160 College Avenue, just across the street from Williams and 159. As you can probably hear, I'm French, and every time I go to my country, I feel very grateful for all the generations who preceded me and who preserved that building, not regarding time, energy, and money. They just kept that building knowing that they have a story to tell. And I think Williams has a very interesting story to tell us. Talking about maintenance, you mentioned the idea of maintenance. I just wonder about a new building. Can we say that a new building does not cost anything about maintenance? I mean, maintaining a building is very costly, and new buildings sometimes cost as much as an old building. So I look at Williams every day on 159 College Avenue because I live just across, and every day I feel, you know, it's really too bad that Vassar is not maintaining those buildings. And I just wonder what's gonna happen with a new building just down the street from us. Is it the idea that we just gonna look at it, you know, collapse and destroy it in 50 years because we did not maintain the building? So I think there is something to be, I mean, yeah, we have to think about that. What does it mean to maintain a building? And I feel as an owner, there is a sense of stewardship. I mean, we own those old buildings and we have something to give to the next generation. It's not just for us. It's not just for our own personal need. What do I want to tell to my kids? What do I want to tell to my grandkids? What do I want to give to the next generation? So this is my concern for Williams. And I look at those buildings every day and I'm grateful that they are here. And I hope we're gonna find enough support to get them where they are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Can I remove my mask when I'm speaking, or I need to keep it on?
If you're comfortable, that's fine.
Yeah.
My name is Luke
And lean
Huntsberger.
into the microphone if you would, please. There we go.
My name is Luke Huntsberger, and I urge the HPC to act to preserve Williams Hall. Its historic importance is incontrovertible. As Vassar noted in their submission, the Williams Hall buildings, quote, indisputably contributed to Vassar College's 20th century history, end quote. Richard Morris Hunt, the father of the Hunt and Hunt architects, was one of the first architects to introduce the Tudor Revival style to the US in the mid-1800s. Hunt and Hunt followed in their father's footsteps, designing Williams Hall and Alumni House together as complementary Tudor Revival buildings. And as was customary in the Tudor Revival style, the Williams buildings and Alumni House were further complemented by elegant landscaping, in this case designed by the Olmsted brothers. However, the Alumni House and Williams building served very different purposes. One, a clubhouse for the trustees and alumni, the other, a home for women professors, the laborers. They are all worthy of preservation. What motivated Harriet Williams to donate $100,000 to Vassar, $100,000 to Vassar, her beloved alma mater, to construct Williams Hall? Well, the Williams family business, a steel foundry in Brooklyn, had long been nationally recognized for its innovative treatment of its 500 workers, including providing housing. In 1912, as he was developing his progressive platform on economic justice, Teddy Roosevelt paid an unsolicited visit to the Williams foundry and was so impressed that he wrote an extensive and glowing editorial about it. In this context, it is clear that Harriet Williams' gift to Vassar was yet another example of her family's long-standing commitment to economic justice. She said, quote, "I have long wished to contribute thus to the welfare of women. No group of professional workers seems to be more worthy of recognition through increased comfort in living conditions than those who have faithfully served Vassar College as professors and instructors. You've heard already how important this radical innovation was for the faculty who resided there. Many viewed Harriet Williams as their, quote, fairy godmother. Treating women faculty with a measure of dignity and respect was an important step in the struggle for equality that continues to this day. Indeed, what was a radical step then would still be radical today, as evidenced by how Vassar has allowed its stock of faculty housing to degrade over the past 10 or 20 years. Vassar's submission included innumerable misleading, inaccurate, or simply irrelevant claims about Williams Hall. Perhaps most absurd were Vassar's claims that rehabilitating Williams would, quote, obliterate the historic nature of the structure, end quote. You know what would obliterate the historic nature of the structure? Demolishing the buildings. Vassar also claimed that they could preserve Williams by creating a digital history that might be accessible through an online platform and an interactive public display. But just as a picture of an ice cream cone cannot evoke the same indescribable feelings as an actual ice cream cone, so too an interactive digital display cannot convey that which the actual physical buildings convey. And let me just note that Vassar pointed out that the interior of Williams Hall was in not good condition, but most of that is due to the asbestos remediation they carried out in August, September, and October, where they tore up walls, tore out the tubs, and so on. So those pictures are highly misleading. This buildings were occupied, 21 of the 22 apartments were occupied through June 30th of this year and have been occupied for 100 years almost.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else in the audience?
So anyone, oh,
Wait.
yes, go.
And then we will go to our Zoom attendants. Thank you for waiting.
My name is Amy Town, and I'm a resident of Poughkeepsie and no way associated with Vassar College. I would just like to stand in support of the historic preservation of the lawn and the houses. And although Olmsted might not have, he may have it separated the lots there on the lawn for future buildings. I feel like they came to their senses and realized this is a beautiful lawn here, let's keep it. That's how I feel. When I drive by there, I feel like I love to see, I think of Olmsted and I think of Central Park. It's just beautiful. And the same with the buildings. My eyes behold the buildings, and I don't need to know exactly, all of the history of it. The house I live in was built in 1913, and I've been working on it for 25 years to restore it. And we put on hardy board siding. It was originally clapboard, but I feel like it looks the same, but it's concrete, it's not wood. And it'll last a lot longer than the clapboard did. So there's gotta be other options for stucco and, preserving the original Tudor. So I know that in my neighborhood, everybody really loves the way that Arlington looks and the feel that you get from being there. New construction, new material does not give you that same feeling. Even when people walk into my home, they're like, oh, this is like my grandmother's house. You get a different feeling from the original materials, the original wood, floors, everything. So I speak for myself and a lot of the other residents who are not associated with Vassar that we are in favor of the preservation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, hi, my name is Neil Levinger, and I'm also a neighbor of the Williams Hall, and we live right behind the Alumni House. A couple of points I do want to say that, echoing what Luke said, when Vassar talked about mitigation efforts, their plan is to turn Williams Hall into a parking lot, which will be right next to our home. And we don't think a parking lot, contributes to the feel of the neighborhood that attracted so many of us there in the first place. You've heard as well that many of the problems are caused by Vassar's neglect. And I would remind you that preservation status is granted to buildings in various states of disrepair and disarray all the time. I mean, think of the Clinton home in downtown Poughkeepsie or other homes that are, or structures that you grant landmark status to, and then it takes some time to figure out what to do with them for the benefit of the whole community. It's my understanding that regarding SHPO, that they would like to you guys to call them, and they would like to put in their own, give you their opinion directly about the arguments for preservation of this beautiful historic property. I do think that we shouldn't get, sucked into the financials, this or that. We should remember, as Luke said, that people want to live there. They have been living there. Those are our friends. Those are our neighbors. And that it doesn't have to be Class A or some kind of adaptive reuse. It was being used, and it can continue to be used. Our side specifically didn't go too much into the interior because we were told to focus on the exterior. So want to kind of put that back on the agenda, something we should focus on. There's a neighborhood feeling with Vassar on one side of Raymond Avenue, Vassar main campus, Williams, the Alumni House, that attracts so many to this neighborhood and gives us a sense of being in a neighborhood where academia, families playing on the green, the farmers market, people bicycling, people going to work, in this mixture of historic and residential properties. It's not going to be replaced by, that feeling can't be replaced by a parking lot. But really what I want to say is how sad I think it is. One of Vassar's slides said that they found that there was no historical significance to the town at Williams Hall. There were no town events and there were no particular town connections. How sad it is that one of the premier institutions of the Hudson Valley says what happened on our campus has no relevance to the town. Vassar is the town of Poughkeepsie, and the town of Poughkeepsie is Vassar. The whole point of the green is that it's kind of an ecotone, a place where ecosystems meld, where the town and the residents and the college meet and greet and celebrate. And Williams Hall is a part of that, where the residents live in the town, contribute to the town, pay taxes in the town, have their recreation in the town. Williams Hall is not separate from the town of Poughkeepsie, and I find that such a sad aspect of their presentation. What the neighbors are saying is, you are part of the town of Poughkeepsie. We are your neighbors. Work with us to preserve this neighborhood. Vassar is a multi-billion-dollar institution with an endowment that is many figures. If they had spent half of the money on consultants, if they had spent money on renovation instead of on consultants telling you what they want to hear, perhaps we wouldn't be in this pickle. They're capable of maintaining this beautiful property, and in doing so, they're capable of maintaining a connection between the town of Poughkeepsie and the college, which should really be the ideal of all of us, institutions working together for the creation of a strong town, a strong college, a strong neighborhood, and a feeling that
your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you, and a feeling that we're all in this together, and that's what I'd like you guys to preserve.
Thank you. If nobody else
Okay,
in the
we have
audience.
no more people from the room. We're going to open it up to the internet, and I turn it over to IT whiz over here. I'm a great end user, but I'm not, there are limits to what I do.
Learning as we go.
So anyone on the internet, if you'll line up if you want to speak.
Okay, let's see. I have a Susan Slotnick. Let me see if you're still with us. No, I don't see her. Okay, so.
Anyone?
Denise Whalen, please. I will unmute you. Bear with me. I have to switch back and forth. Denise?
Yes.
I muted you. You might have to. There you go.
You can hear me? Hello?
Just do me a favor because I'm not hearing you. Test.
Hello?
Just bear with us a second. Oh, okay.
Hello?
Okay, bear with us 1 second while we fix the setting.
All right.
Was it up turn?
Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
Hello?
Our tech
We'll be
guru
back in a
is
second.
running to the back.
It'll
room
be
real quick.
interesting in the future if anyone thinks that Zoom is worth restoring, but that's just my opinion, given some of the complexities of it through the last couple of weeks.
What do you think is wrong?
Aha.
Yes? Hello?
While we are waiting for our the town technician to adjust this, one question in the comments or the chat asked if we'd be reading aloud the Zoom comments. And for those who had to leave early, we are recording the comments. They will be included in the transcript of, or not transcript, but the meeting. Let's see here. So while we're waiting, I can read Susan Zlotnick's comment. She writes, "We too have another obligation this evening, so we are going to share our support for the preservation of Williams. We live at 162 College Avenue, right across from the Alumni House driveway. We see Williams every time we leave our house. Williams is integral to the streetscape of College Avenue. One of the things that makes College Avenue such a beautiful place to live is its mix of domestic architectural styles of the past 100 years, colonial revival, farmhouse, shingle style, and Tudor revival of Williams, Alumni House, and 159 College Avenue. A large parking lot with a hotel and restaurant will destroy both the historic fabric and residential nature of the neighborhood. If Williams is torn down, the neighborhood will also be losing a vital and public green space. There's also historic nature of Williams itself that should be attended to when deciding the fate of the structure. It was purpose-built. Its purpose was for women faculty members to afford them the dignity of independent living while working at the college. It offered these women not only the room of their own, but a home of their own, away from the demands of college life." That was Susan Zlotnick's. And is it something that was already submitted in the application? I would prefer if it came firsthand from that person. I do not have access to email through this iPad. It only runs on the town meeting. There is another comment, though, I will read. Denise, just give a test. Let's see if you...
Yes, can you hear me?
No, not yet. I'm sorry. Bear with us. Scroll back up. Ella Larson comments, she is in support of the preservation of Williams. She is a Vassar student. Jacob Hunter writes, I am in support of preservation of Williams. He's a Vassar student. Susan Stevens, a Vassar alum from 79, who writes, 32 Vassar View Road. My concern is twofold. Firstly, the Inn and Institute would destroy the residential flavor of the neighborhood. And secondly, at this present moment, Vassar has a greater financial need than building an Inn and Institute that is essentially a vanity project for the directors on the board who are funding it. Save Williams wrote, oh no, Melissa Hoffman, a Vassar student, wrote, I support the preservation of Williams. Mutad Alawala writes, my name is Mutad Alawala. My address is 124 Raymond Avenue. I'm a Vassar student. My concern is that our heritage as a college is important. We should not be losing any of our buildings, especially not one designed by famous architects. Protect Williams. Jenny Colabella writes, I work in Poughkeepsie and drive by Williams every day. Before Williams Hall was constructed, the female faculty of Vassar College lived in dormitories while male faculty were given private housing. So Williams Hall represents an important change in the lives and careers of professional women. I truly find it unbelievable that the representatives of a former women's college could advocate tearing down the first home for women faculty, which was built with the funds donated by an alumni of one of the earliest graduating classes, and justify it by saying that the neighbor's house is saving the neighbor's house is good enough. The New York State Office of Parks, Rec, and Historic Preservation didn't preserve a portion of the adjacent house to Springside and call it a day. They salvaged what they could of Matthew Vassar's home. The women who worked at this college deserve the same respect. Williams Hall is an important piece of our history, and we should preserve it for future generations.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Thank you. Sorry. I always prefer a live person.
Me apparently, larger than life, it seems.
Yes.
I have very little new to add, though I do really very much want to add my voice to the chorus for historic preservation of Williams Hall and the area 159 to 171 College Avenue. I do believe that there is architectural and landscape significance to that property. I certainly believe that there is historic value. I myself am a faculty member at Vassar College, and I think it's shameful to ignore the history of my predecessors and what they went through to support the students at Vassar College, and that this space was built for them so that they would have a private place to prepare and to study and to do their scholarship. But as a resident of the town of Poughkeepsie, I also firmly believe that the preservation of that property has great community value. The beauty and the character of that streetscape is essential. It's one of the prettiest areas in the town of Poughkeepsie, and I would really hate to lose it. I thank you very much for your time. I thank you very much for considering this, this historic preservation application. And thank you for waiting so long to hear me speak.
Thank you for your patience. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
for your patience, Grace.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else?
We have a bunch.
Okay.
So we have, next I have Jean Kane. And let me make sure I have you unmuted, Jean. Okay, you're all set, Jean. Can you hear us?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. I've been working on Zoom myself a lot and it's quite challenging. I am a member of the Arlington neighborhood. I am a resident in faculty housing, not Williams. I live in Poughkeepsie and I teach in the Women's Studies program of Poughkeepsie. I want to echo what some people have suggested, but really call attention to the rubrics that are used in this argument, that because better materials weren't used, that it shouldn't be preserved the way that Alumni House should. This was housing for women. We don't get the same treatment. So you're going to use the fact that they were not treated as well as they used to be to discount something that was done for them. You're also dividing Vassar faculty from residents of the town, which I think is unfortunately true in some instances, but not the feeling of the people at this meeting. I also find the aesthetic rubric has no historical inflection for laborers or for women. And I would beg you to think about what you mean when you say history, because if it's only masterworks that are perfectly preserved, that's going to leave a lot of people out.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we have Jonathan Gordon.
You need to have strong opinions. Thank you so much.
Okay, Jonathan Gordon, I'm guessing.
I spoke in person already.
Okay,
I don't need to go again. Thank you.
Thank you. Franco Caruso. Let's see if he is still on.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. See if we can give a look at the. Okay. Can we share a screen, because I like to show a few pictures, and
If you keep it to 3 minutes, I can do that. Hold on, let's see.
okay.
Okay. I believe you should be able to share now. Might take a second. Okay, it's working.
Wait.
Okay.
Click there. Click there. Okay, that's it. Okay. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to talk. I'm one of the last residents at Williams. Okay. So during the pandemic, we were there constrained to make boxes to leave the building. It was something really so unhappy. Anyway, I would like to focus on the architectural the area of this meeting. So this is a booklet published by the Metropolitan Museum of Art in 1874. So the New York Public Sculptures, and go to the next. Okay, so we can go just right ahead to the main subject. This is the memorial for Richard Hand, and we know that he was the creator of this very successful family of architects. So it was the next generation that made Williams an Alumni House. This has been mentioned. It's interesting to see that this family of architects made the facade of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, extension of the ex-wing of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and of course this monument, this etc., is in Central Park. Okay. Besides that, he made the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty and many buildings on Fifth Avenue. So someone that we consider among the best architects in this country. And so you wonder, well, New York have a lot of things to do and to celebrate and the memory of this person. And you wonder why Vassar College cannot place a plaque in this building and said, this is in memory of Harry Williams that gave such amount of money 50 years ago. Let's see, in 1970, right? 50 years ago, this woman, this alumni gave this money, and the famous architect Hunt made this building. Nothing. Vassar neglect this sort of things. Absolutely nothing. For them, it's not important. It is really a shame, in my opinion, this type of philosophy. Okay. Now, if I have 1 minute more, I would like to talk about the most until recent, the most important architect historian of Vassar College, Nick Adams. He allowed me to declare or to deposit the declaration, and I sent half an hour ago or an hour ago this to be deposited. I'm going to select only a few items, okay? So, Nick Adams worked 30 years and retired as in the art department. The college did choose not to consult me about this plan. Had they done so, I would have pointed to 3 reasons for preservation of Williams. And I'm going to the central point, point 2, and it says, Williams Hall and Alumni House are a pair, both socially and architecturally. They are comparable examples of the late Victorian style, call it in end, not Tudor style. Okay? They are conceived as an ensemble. So over the years, Vassar has broken the relationship by planting trees along Alumni House. The relation with this twin building is no longer clear. They are also neglected to keep Williams Hall. But this indifference to landscape should not blind the community to the fact that the buildings were conceived together as a landscape, as a pair. Final declaration. To mutilate this relationship by removing Williams and cramming a modern building onto the site is willful vandalism of what should be a peaceful, rocky garden park in Arlington. I understand that his opinion was not liked by the Vassar College administration. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can understand almost nothing of what he said.
I think we will have to rely on the recording to go back and have a better look at that.
That would help me.
Okay, well, that's good. So you've submitted it to John. So Annan, the letter was submitted to John and emailed today, so we'll be able to read the letter.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Crusoe. Okay, next we have bear with me. I'm going to go back up. Ellen Stewart. Mute you, Ellen.
My video. Hello.
Oh, good. Okay, good. You're already set.
Hang on just one second. Yeah, my name is Ellen Stewart, and as Jen from the ANA recently said previously, I serve on the Hoboken Historic Preservation Commission and the Board of the Marlborough Historical Society in Ulster County, and I also am a Vassar alumna. Tonight I'm here as a historic preservationist in strong support of the landmarking of Williams Hall. Like so many other freshmen, when I first arrived on the Vassar campus, I was immediately taken by its beautiful buildings. Historic places give a powerful sense of time, of history, and of those who came before us, and I felt all of that and more. One summer, I decided to stay on campus and got a job at Alumni House. I walked over there every day, taking in the Tudor Revival buildings, the house at 159 College Avenue, the 3 Williams Hall buildings, and of course, Alumni House. As I walked up the driveway to work, my 19-year-old self felt like I had been transported into a hilly English countryside with the Alumni House lawn rolling down towards Raymond Avenue. The idea that one or more of these beautiful buildings could be torn down was unfathomable. On page 2 of the report authored by Beth Seelig of Hudson Valley Cultural Resource Consultants dated September 28th, 2020, Ms. Seelig opines that Williams Hall, that quote, Williams Hall is neither a significant example of Hunt and Hunt's work generally, nor even the most significant in the town, which is the Alumni House. The report goes on to state that Alumni House, quote, overshadows Williams in terms of siting, massing, and detailing, and suggests that Williams is not highly visible in comparison to Alumni House. However, there appears to be no acknowledgement of the fact that these 2 buildings were constructed for 2 very different purposes. Alumni House was intended to be a large public gathering place in which alumni and family could be hosted, and Williams was constructed to comfortably house female faculty and provide its residents some seclusion in a bucolic landscape setting. It has been well established, but it bears repeating, that Williams Hall is a contributing resource to the state and national register eligible Vassar College campus under criteria A and C, and has also been deemed eligible for local designation, see the Larson Fisher report. It was architect designed and funded by a donation from Harriet Trumbull Williams, a class of 1870 alumna who was long interested in housing problems and had also long wished to contribute to the welfare of women. Williams Hall contributes not only to the Vassar campus, but also to the Arlington neighborhood and its historic buildings. And for all these reasons, it is worthy of landmarking. In an April 2020 interview, Paul Edmondson, the president of CEO and the National Trust of Historic Preservation, was asked if there are certain types of places that he feels are more worthy of preservation than others. For example, homes versus public buildings or vice versa. He said, each has its place. Iconic landmarks serve as statements that speak to higher aspirations of our society or define major events or movements in history, or that represent important architectural achievements. But the places in which we live, work, play, and pray, the more ordinary places, are important too, because they represent what we value in our daily lives and tell individual stories that reflect our history as a society. He goes on to say, and this is important, if historic places are not considered to be living assets in the communities in which they are located, they will be at risk. Often people don't realize how much these places are part of their communities until they are threatened or even lost. In my opinion, and I am certainly not alone, Williams is one of those places. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Eve D'Ambra, we have you up next. Make sure I'll unmute you. You may have to unmute yourself, Eve.
I think I just did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Eve D'Ambra. I'm a professor of art history at Vassar College. I'm also on the board of the Rhinebeck Historical Society, and I'd like to speak in favor of the historic preservation of Williams House. Williams House is historically significant because it is not a Gilded Age mansion or townhouse typically designed by instead, is how a historical revival style was used in a smaller, simpler, and less luxurious building, a faculty apartment building. The Hunt brothers had to work on a different scale here for cost, size, design, plan, and materials, and we've heard some of that. Yet even in modest circumstances, yet even in modern circumstances, the building demonstrates the good design principles and aesthetics of the Tudor revival style. It shows how high society architects, the Hunt brothers, worked to design apartments for our unmarried female faculty. Note today, historic sites like Mills Mansion and other historic houses in the Valley give tours of servants' quarters that focus on their working lives. This is of historic significance, as is the professional status and advancement of women on the Vassar faculty, as evidenced by their receiving proper housing in Williams House in the early 1920s. This is of cultural consequence to the college and I think to the town of Poughkeepsie. Both Alumni House and Williams were conceived as a pair and built as an ensemble. I think we've heard that. Alumni House dominates the perspective up on the hill, as Vassar says in its report, but I would add that Williams House defines the neighborhood on street level. The Olmsted Brothers plan, you've seen, shows residential lots once marked along Raymond Avenue. Although that plan was not implemented, it gives the sense that this was conceived as a residential corridor. Beatrix Farren's plan envisioned gardens and arboretum for the site as a unit, all the buildings together. Again, her plan was not implemented by the college either, but we have greenery landscape and open public space on the site and right nearby. Furthermore, College Avenue in the early 1920s had houses, several of them built by a woman architect, but that's another story. 166 College Avenue in particular was sited, that is lined up exactly with Williams House across the street. I think that was in 1921 or in the 1920s. So I would like to say that Williams House anchors the streetscape and the green corner there and gives it a distinctive character, both historical and aesthetic. Thank you.
Thank you. Miriam Rossi.
Hello. Hi. Hi, I'm going to be quick because I think a lot of what I wanted to say has been repeated very eloquently by my predecessors. So I'm a faculty member of Vassar College, and I most recently lived in Williams Apartments about 1 month ago. We were evicted by my employer during the pandemic, and we now live in another Vassar apartment, which is in a historic landmark building. It's in Rombout House, and this building is also not maintained. It is actually in much worse shape than the 3 prior Williams apartments that I lived in. I lived in 3 of them in my 37 years at Vassar College. And I just wanted to just say that maintaining the Williams apartments just anchors that whole Arlington neighborhood. The Tudor motif carries over. You can even see it in the Juliet Theater. And it has just made that whole neighborhood very serene and bucolic. And I think getting rid of it would be a real damaging effect on the neighborhood. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We have Thomas Hill wrote a comment. I don't know if you want to speak, Thomas, while you have a chance. Make sure you got unmuted. I've unmuted you. Well, I thought I did. Is there anybody else attending Zoom that would like to speak? If you could raise your hand on Zoom. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I see Mutad Alawala. Please forgive me if I mispronounced your name.
That's okay. I think someone else also has their hand up. Beth has their hand up. If you want to, yeah.
Well, I have you here, so let's go for it. You have 3 minutes.
I need to read something for myself and for someone else. Is that okay?
Say again?
I need to read something for myself and for someone else. Is that okay?
That is fine.
Okay. Hello, my name is Motad Allawala, and I'm a student at Vassar. This is my 2nd year serving on the student government, and I'm one of 2 college planning senators that represent student concerns regarding changes to campus. I want to support the application for preservation of Williams. Peeling stucco or loose shingles aren't any reason to destroy a building as beautiful as Williams. My professors have told me so much about Williams and with such fondness. Even if the problems Vassar is describing are genuine, Williams is loved and valued. If it were shown love like the Alumni House, it would look just as shiny. We students are opposed to any destruction of our collective heritage. Williams contributed and contributes to our college's success, and it's sad that the college would even consider demolishing its own building. Let's remember that Vassar was a pioneer in women's higher education. It set a model for the world. Williams is part of that model. It's part of Vassar. It's part of our history. In their summary, Vassar admits that women of its faculty suffered from institutional discrimination, and their complaints about poor living situations were ignored. I think it was Jean Kane who said this, but if Williams is in bad shape, then it is a testimony to how even in this forward-looking women's college, women had to fight for themselves. Williams being in bad shape.
It is also American masters work in tandem with with 2 eminent landscape architects, 2 pairs of
Thomas, could you mute yourself temporarily?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, continue.
Can I read the other persons?
Yeah, we lost you at the end. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe the last paragraph? I'm not sure where we left off.
Okay, I'll just read the last paragraph. In their summary, Vassar admits that women of its faculty suffered from institutional discrimination and their complaints about poor living situations were ignored. I think it was Jean Kane who said this, but if Williams is in bad shape, then it is a testimony to how even in this forward-looking women's college, women had to fight for themselves. William being in bad shape, if anything, makes it more historic, not less historic. Can I read the letter now?
You have 45 seconds.
My name is Nicholas Adams, Mary Conover Mellon Professor in the History of Architecture Emeritus. I live at 36 Leedsville Road, Armenia, New York. The destruction of Williams Hall would mark another sad step in the destruction of Vassar's historic campus. That permission for its destruction needs to pass through the town of Poughkeepsie offers the possibility of reprieve, and I urge the board to reject the college's application. I write as an architectural historian, sometimes called on to provide historical testimony concerning altering historic buildings. Although I taught at Vassar for 30 years and retired as Mary Conover Mellon Professor in the Art Department in 2017, the college chose not to consult me about this plan. Had they done so, I would have pointed to 3 reasons for the preservation of Williams and the hillside site of the Alumni House. 1, Williams is an important testimony of faculty status. The college faculty originally lived either in main building or in houses of their own. Typically, women faculty, if unmarried, resided in Maine where they lived, ate, and slept in close proximity to their students. In that respect, there was little to distinguish Vassar from a boarding school. The construction of Williams was a significant step in faculty physical and intellectual liberation. Single women could live on their own economically and safely. They could have private workspaces and have autonomous lives. Williams is thus a monument to women's academic liberation. In that respect, it complements Alumni House. In early Vassar, the administration was all-powerful. Presidents controlled student faculty.
Your time is up. I'm sure Jennifer or somebody will forward the comment to the committee.
Of course, thank you.
To include in the record.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you. Thomas, I see you on the screen, so why don't we go with you and then we'll do Beth's comment. Okay. Thomas? Thomas, you're up. Can you hear us? Okay, how about Beth then?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Beth, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to cut the comments that I was going to make because of the time getting late. I just wanted to mention that I came to Poughkeepsie in 1967 and began a long teaching career at Vassar, from which I retired after nearly half a century. And I lived first in the city of Poughkeepsie, and for 25 years now, I've been living on Vassar land and Vassar Lake Drive. I just want to speak briefly as an advocate for the preservation of Williams House and the green space near Alumni House on Raymond Avenue and College Avenue. Others have spoken eloquently of that. I want to express my concern, which Miriam Rossi also mentioned and several other people have, a deep disappointment for many of us about the way that the college has handled the preservation of faculty housing. And I'm going to mention 3 things. I've been told that at least 3 college houses currently suffer from infestations of unhealthy black mold. The historical Victorian house, formerly owned by Robert and Evelyn Fortna on Vassar Lake Drive, number 28, I think is the new number, has been empty now for a number of years. Bob retired in 1995. The Fortnas moved to New York later, and for a while the house was rented out. But I've been told by neighbors that despite its historical significance, it's very old, it will be demolished. I don't know if this is true, but I find the rumors saddening, and I don't know what's going to happen. The 85-year-old home of Lynn and Maggie Bartlett at 170 College Avenue, that's not quite opposite Alumni House, but it's real close there, and many of you know it, has been empty since my friend Lynn's death in 2014. Other friends have told me that it also has serious problems with black mold. Vassar has offered the house on the market for sale for several years now, but no one apparently has been willing to invest in it. I assume because of the mold, but I'm not sure. There's one other person and one other home. This current renter, I believe, was at the meeting earlier, and I don't want to say anything that will involve that person personally. There is another Tudor-style house at 136 Fulton Avenue, which I still think of as Christine Havelock's home. Some of you knew her. It's been rented out from time to time since her retirement in 1990, when subsequently, a little after that, she moved from Poughkeepsie to Boston. Its current occupant is a tenured professor who would not buy the house, though, because of the mold, which she said would be too expensive to have been treated. I can think of another Victorian house nearby that's been demolished. That was a while ago. I'm not going to go into that now. Recently, there have been suggestions to turn faculty apartments at Kendrick, Jean Kane could speak more about this, on Raymond Avenue, and the Bartlett's former residence on College Avenue into administrative space for the college. I think this is unfair to members of the faculty, and I disapprove of it, and I would like the board to know about that. In the past, I believe the college had a stronger commitment to caring for faculty housing, as well as for some of the campus's beautiful open spaces. In closing, I would like to give a brief example of that latter commitment. When trustees made the decision for the college to become coeducational in 1969, President Alan Simpson appointed Jack Duggan to a newly creative administrative position here. Shortly after, a house on the beautiful far shore of Sunset Lake was planned for him, and construction indeed began. Students and faculty protested actively, loudly, and insistently. I was one of them, and the site was altered to a location on college land nearby. The current owner of the house is the college's Dean of Strategic Planning and Academic Resources. It seems to me that concerned strategic planning now is indeed very urgent to preserve housing for members of the faculty, which is very important because Vassar faculty members have a closer relationship with many of their students, and having that close housing nearby is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. That concludes the people who have listed, or I see in the chat, who have asked to speak. I do see his comment. Does Thomas want to speak? I have unmuted you, Thomas, if you want to speak. Okay.
Could somebody phone Tom?
He's on. He's here. I just don't think he has his headphones on. I will read his comment and then we'll conclude the meeting. My name is Thomas Hill and I am an art librarian at Vassar College. For the record, a campus building analysis was conducted by a prominent conservation architectural for Platt Baird Dovell White, based in New York in 2007, that found no particular problem with the building that they reported demanded little serious repair, and that the most urgent restorations would involve periodic maintenance every 5 years. This is an essential faculty housing structure that represents the historical and progressive essence of the college, first wave feminism, and the institution of shared governance of the American campuses. It is also an architectural gem by two masters working in tandem with two eminent landscape architects. Two pairs of sons and brothers, therefore, who were from what were at the time members of the most lauded architectural families in the nation, who made an astounding contribution to the American built environment. To displace Williams and its green for this project will be to build a house upon the sands of whim and vanity. The Inn and Institute The plan lacks historic, aesthetic, institutional, and community sensibility. As evidence that this irregular, wholly top-down and about the money of power, there was no design-build competition or any kind of deliberations required to produce a quality architect and a good building designed based on a sound program. This on-campus, with a national reputation for teaching architectural history and boasting monuments and landscapes designed by Pelly, Breuer, Horan, Saarinen, McAndrew, Renwick, etc., bestowed upon us by our progressive predecessors for the emphasis in the adage, we precedes me. During the COVID crisis, this project is about the whim of one trustee outweighing the historical and community needs of the rest of us and those who follow us. It is a betrayal of who we are. Thank you. Okay, I'm cutting off now because it is getting late. Any other comments will be recorded and will be reviewed by the committee. Let's see. Oddly enough, I'm not seeing hands raised on this, but let me see. Marianne. Okay, Marianne.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'll be very short. I would just like to point out that embedded in many of these comments is an in an institute sentiment, which is besides the point when we are considering the historical significance of Williams. Williams was a substandard quality dormitory built to appease the women faculty of the early 20th century. It was built by men had better homes, and the women were put off campus in Williams as a dormitory in shared living situations. A feminist scholar of the 20th century, which I am clearly not, would point out the missing voices in this narrative. These women did not make a difference because of Williams, but in spite of it. And there were many women that are not accounted for that supported the work of these women faculty. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That concludes. Are we taking responses?
Just quick, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
There's a comment made about the maintenance of Williams and neglect. And I just wanted to note that Vassar has over 50 buildings and we work to maintain them as best we can. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done every year. And Williams is one of the more challenging ones because of the materials that was already discussed today. But every year there is work that gets done in Williams. We maintain the buildings over 240 work tickets a year, which is about 1 per month per unit. We have replaced the windows, rebuilt chimneys, upgraded the fire system, done some repairs on boilers. So there has been work done. And I also don't want the narrative to come out that Vassar doesn't work and invest in its buildings. You know, over the last several years, we've renovated the old observatory, New England building, Sanders Physics, Swift, and others. So there is work going on to preserve the history of Vassar. And the work on Main, talking about changing the windows, that actually is more aligned with the history of that building than the current paint. And so we are working towards actually restoring that to the real colors and preservation of Williams. And we have begun restoring faculty housing and investing in faculty housing, including some work to be done in Roundabout, which was brought up earlier today. So I didn't want the narrative out there about neglect. There has been a challenge over the last several years, largely starting at the financial crisis, but that is rebounding and we are making those investments.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer, one last comment.
Is there anyone else online? Yeah, okay.
No, that's it.
I just get so confused because letters were sent to the community justifying the demolition of Williams because of Vassar's claim of neglecting Williams. But Vassar's not neglected Williams, and Williams has taken care of our community. And when we lose Williams Hall, we lose 23 families from our neighborhood. We lose the character of our neighborhood and the value of our home. And I'd like to end by reading the last 2 comments that twice were attempted to be read, both by Franco Caruso and by Mohtad. This is from Nick Adams, a Vassar expert in architectural history. Second point, Williams Hall and the Alumni House are a pair, both socially and architecturally. They're comparable examples of the late Victorian style called Queen Anne, and they're conceived as an ensemble. Vassar's grounds department has over the years broken that relationship by planting trees around the Alumni House so that its relation to its twin is no longer clear. They've also neglected upkeep of Williams, but this indifference to landscaping should not blind the committee to the fact that the buildings were conceived together and should be landscaped and preserved as a pair. To mutilate this relationship by removing Williams and cramming a modern building onto the site is willful vandalism of what should be a peaceful rocky garden parkland in Arlington. Finally, Williams Hall is a fine piece of early 20th century architecture comparable to the other buildings along College View and Raymond Avenue that provide a low-level mixed commercial residential area. Vassar College likes to speak about patronizing and not competing with local business, the construction of a hotel, and I'm not going to go any further into that. The materials of all the buildings on campus are similar, and yet we preserve them. They're all National Historic eligible, as is Williams. And again, I thank you for your service and coming out tonight in COVID. Thank you.
Thank you.
No one else? Nobody else.
Okay, fine. Well, I just, let me unhook here. Thank you all. This has been extremely helpful to the commission. This is a difficult situation, obviously, for everyone involved. We understand that. And we have heard what you said. We've taken it to heart. We've taken it to head. And it will really help us in making our decision. So thank you very much for being here tonight. And you will be hearing from us soon. And there's probably more to come, what I would suggest in this. Anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now I'm going to adjourn the public hearing of this meeting, and the commission will meet back in closed session to continue the rest of our normal business that we do October. Anyway, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Blood. It's bloodletting, medieval. So I had one
Colleen,
yesterday.
can
and
you
they
hear
took
us?
out more than they should have. So I'm just there's no strength there. Oh, well, wait till Ann comes back. Oh.
Colleen? She stepped away. Well, I guess if she's not back in a minute or two, we can just adjourn because there's nothing to discuss We got a quorum.
Uh-oh. Wasn't quite sure what that was for.
Yeah.
Colleen.
Okay, so the Ann gets back in, well,
Yeah, we can wait until Ann gets back. I hope the chats were recorded.
Everything can be recorded, and I'm pretty sure the chat we can save. I'm just not familiar enough with Zoom. I just have to check, but I'm almost positive it saves a.
I did cut one person off because she had already spoken and it was getting out of hand. It was a bit like, it was very obvious who, the majority was here, so.
it seems to hit a little
I
bit of a
tried.
nerve when I said about the deterioration,
Yeah.
but it's the truth.
Colleen? Yeah,
Who's that?
Colleen's, I guess
Oh, there she
Colleen
is.
is gone, so.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
let's finish up this with
Colleen-
old business. Any,
Well, you really can't without Colleen. You don't have a
Colleen's
quorum
not
anymore.
here.
We're done.
We don't have a quorum,
You're a
so,
quorum.
oh yeah, that's right. Okay,
She's-
fine. We're
she's-
adjourned.
yeah,
That's it.
okay.
All right, the one thing I really found interesting, and especially the comments that were online, is that there's a lot of women hurt over this because it's bringing up a second-class treatment that they've had most of their lives. And that's one aspect of this whole thing I find really kind of fascinating.